So, on 9/11, the Illuminati set the wheels in motion to open up a stargate, not only on the level of our third eye water doors, but quite possibly a literal stargate to higher dimensions, though that is speculation. To symbolise this, they have built or are building the One World Trade Center, a tall structure that reaches into the skies of New York. That appears to be what we're dealing with, and many are speculating that 2012 will be the time that this Stargate opens, symbolised of course by the X. That is our dimension fusing with the X, that is the parallel or high dimension, giving us the double X. This scenario makes perfect sense, and it is my personal belief that the planet that Zecharia Sitchin's interpretation of the Sumerian tablets calls Marduk, and Planet X is in actuality Dimension X, and it is alleged to be arriving in 2012 according to the tablets, and 2012 is the year of this X forming galactic alignment. So where else have we heard all this before? Tall buildings that reach into the skies, Stargate portals. The answer to all this is in the book of Genesis, the story of the Tower of Babel, and the events surrounding 9/11 and 2012 bear a striking resemblance to this story. Nimrod, who the Freemasons identify as their founder, was, according to the Bible, a tyrannical dictator who, along with the people of that time, constructed a huge tower that reached into the skies, the Tower of Babel. Babel translates as gateway to God. The Tower of Babel was located in ancient Babylon, which is present-day Iraq. It is no coincidence that Iraq or Babylon lies on the 33rd parallel, another sacred area. Nimrod comes from the name Marduk, which is the name given to the so-called Planet X. Furthermore, Marduk actually means the bright or shining one. In other words, illuminated one. Then there was Nebuchadnezzar, who claimed he was the reincarnated Nimrod. Nebuchadnezzar rebuilt Babylon and, like Nimrod, opened the Babel Gate to God. Now, when Nimrod opened this gate, the gods reacted by separating the language of mankind from one universal language to many languages, so that we wouldn't work together in trying to open the gate again. When Nebuchadnezzar opened the gate in 576 BC, according to prophecy, the last time Planet X was visible, a divine whirlwind called Shekinah stopped him, and he was told that he would soon die, which he did. Fast forward to modern day, and Saddam Hussein, who was adamant that he was the reincarnated gate opener himself, Nebuchadnezzar, sought to rebuild Babylon, including the Tower of Babel and the Hanging Gardens. Just like Nebuchadnezzar was taken out by a divine whirlwind called Shekinah, the Hebrew term for goddess or feminine aspect of God, Saddam and Baghdad were attacked by America in what was called the Shekinah campaign, an obvious play on the word Shekinah. The weapon used in this Shekinah campaign was the Moab, which stands for Mother of All Bombs. The Moab were the people who attacked King Nebuchadnezzar in the Bible. This is a Renaissance-era Masonic painting of ancient Babylon. All of the components of this depiction can be, or could be, found in New York City. New York is most definitely Babylonian in spirit, and as far as the Tower of Babel goes, I would suggest that the One World Trade Center is the New York counterpart of this, and since both represent the gate, closed since the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, I think we can safely say that New York is in reality New Babylon. The magicians over at Hollywood have confirmed this with the film Babylon AD, where Vin Diesel escorts a girl to New York City in order for her to give virginal birth to twins that validate a Luciferian religion known as the Noelites. These Noelites have their headquarters within a black pyramid-shaped pillar near or on Ground Zero. So, what really is the Tower of Babel? Well, to cut a long story short, it is the middle pillar. This is why the One World Trade Center is octagonal. It is the combination of two squares, i.e. the Twin Towers. It is for this reason that it is said that in order to cross the Anti-Qurana or Rainbow Bridge, you must build the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is the rising of your Kundalini serpent up the spine, symbolised by the caduceus. This is why the Caduceus is so heavily associated with Thoth or Hermes. Thoth and Hermes and the Rainbow Bridge or Antikythera are all exactly the same thing, the spiraling vortex or Appledoor. As far as Nimrod being the first Freemason, this is all metaphor. Freemasons also credit Hiram Abiff as the first Freemason, so how can this be? Simple. Hiram Abiff was the master builder of Solomon's Temple, which, as we know, is the middle pillar, but Nimrod was the builder of the Tower of Babel, which is the middle pillar. Solomon's Temple and the Tower of Babel are the same thing, different metaphors, but the same concept. Solomon's Temple or Tower of Babel are polarity, which opens the Stargate, or X. This is why Nimrod's name is derived from Marduk, the name given to Planet X, which is, in reality, the Stargate, or illumination, if you will. And illumination is exactly what Marduk means, the bright or shining one. Zion, which, interestingly, if you flip the N, gives you 2012, is another word of some significance. Zion is often used to designate the land of Israel and its capital Jerusalem. Later the word Zion has become a metonym for Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, and the entire promised land to come, in which, according to Hebrew Bible, God dwells among his chosen people. So Zion is where God will dwell among his people. So it's no wonder that Solomon's Temple and Zion came to mean the same thing. In fact, it never really had to come to mean the same thing, as it always has meant the same thing. Why? Because both are the place where God dwell. Zion, Solomon's Temple, illumination, the Eye of Horus, etc. Interestingly, the word Zion bears similarities to the Arabic word Zaya, which means light, generated from self-luminous objects, like the sun or the moon. So the word on, which is Oz-flipped, is Egyptian for sun. So you get Zaya on, light of the sun. Although Zion and Zion may differ ever so slightly in spelling, I'm convinced beyond any shadow of a doubt that they are in fact the same thing. So 9/11 was an event designed to usher in the Ion of Horus. We know that there are many ways to describe this Ion of Horus, which means oneness with collective consciousness. Illumination, Zion, death, rebirth, eating the forbidden fruit, Pan, Oz, Thoth, Christ, Atlantis, Eden. We know this involves the serpent energy rising up the spine, activating the 7 chakras and opening the third eye. And this process is the building of Solomon's Temple, or the Tower of Babel. And the illumination is when God dwells within Solomon's Temple. God is a word to describe the all, as is Pan, and the all is collective consciousness. But although consciousness is on some level all one, it seems deceptive to simply refer to illumination as oneness with the all, as the all is dualistic in nature, Christ and Antichrist, and Christ and Antichrist is of course good and evil. The polarity that is good and evil is, as far as I can see, at the centre of perhaps one of the greatest deceptions of all. The elite seem to have a vested interest in trying to convince people that there is no good or evil. Now, there are of course exceptions. For instance, the elite do allow their puppets in the field of politics to use distorted, manipulative spin to convince the masses that they're good and that their opposition are evil. And a prime example of this would be George W. Bush and the evil terrorists, which of course sounds like some dodgy kids novel. The people I'm referring to as being deceived into thinking that there is no good or evil are the people that are involved in the practice of illumination, people within the occult fraternities, and others not involved with the elite, and to their knowledge, who are just trying to further their own spiritual development, so-called New Agers. William Shakespeare, or perhaps Francis Bacon, if the theories are correct, wrote that nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. This is true in many ways. Far too often people do apply labels to things that are relative, based on their own personal bias or beliefs. However, to deny evil exists is a bias in and of itself, and quite a dangerous one at that. To truly define something as evil, I feel the following boxes need to be ticked. 1 is a conscious form of some kind. 2, It is fully aware of the implications of its actions. 3. It understands the value of life, but willingly takes lives despite this fact. 4. It understands that causing another unnecessary pain or violating them is wrong, yet chooses to do so anyway. 5. It feels no empathy or love. 6. It thrives on negativity of all kinds. 7. It will look you in the eyes and lie, and will enjoy doing so. 8. It feels nothing but contempt, even for those that serve it. In fact, I would say especially for those that serve it. 9. It will steal the teachings of love, compassion and enlightenment, and use distorted versions of these teachings to tear you away from love, compassion and enlightenment. And 10. It has no respect for you or your free will as an individual on any level whatsoever. Now that we got that out of the way, we should take a quick look at this notion that the end justifies the means. According to many a person in the so-called spiritually awake or enlightened circles, the events on 9/11 were a necessary step in the spiritual growth of our collective consciousness. Now, while I won't dispute the fact that the events on 9/11 have had an undeniably huge effect as far as people waking up to a certain extent goes, I'm not going to take this end justifies the means approach. I mean, it baffles me that I should have to explain this to people, but murdering, no matter what the end result may be, is wrong. And to murder in the name of spiritual enlightenment is beyond ridiculous. If you had a belief that 9/11 was somehow wonderful because it helped to wake so many people up, because you feel so illuminated now, I'd suggest that you go and talk to some of the victims or the victim family members. See how illuminated you feel when attempting to describe to, say, a man who lost a child, or a mother, or someone whose entire family is now dead. The death of their family was a necessary step in the evolution of our consciousness. Perhaps if you were a mother or a father, you'll understand what I mean. If some psycho breaks into your house, picks up your 2-year-old baby, kicks it through a 24-story high window, and then on top of that tells you that the killing of your baby was a necessary step in the evolution of consciousness, would you accept that? Well, if you would, I feel sorry for you. There is, of course, something that requires you to see things this way. Something that is more than happy for you to believe that it doesn't exist, while it manipulates you and shapes your opinions.